Yes, to talking about illness and being chronically ill or having to go to hospitals often and seeing doctors. I think, as with your case, I'm not quite sure of the details, but in my case, I've had these nothing really pressing or problematic for myself, but diagnoses based on blood tests and different tests, and they're all grey area, they're all uncertain, but they're all potentially deadly. I'm going to have a heart attack, I'm going to have cancer, this and that, and people get really serious and somber and worried, and I personally am not particularly worried by these things, and everyone has to die, even me. And so I'm going to die, and it's not a big problem for me. And whenever I die, it's okay. So that's not what's difficult. It's just living every day as truly as I can is not necessarily difficult, but that's what is a challenge. Death is not a challenge for me. And dealing with doctors is an interesting thing. Going to hospitals is to me interesting. Whenever I'm in a hospital, I think I experience it as something like stepping onto the ship of the dead. So sitting around the OPD, which I've had quite a lot of experience of, everyone is slightly anxious. Nobody's there because it's fun to be there. It's not like going to the movies or sitting in Starbucks. Even though there's a Starbucks down the foyer, the place I go. So that's really interesting. Like being on planes is for me interesting because that's also like the ship of the dead. So it's where there's a general intensification of underlying anxiety and fear. And I find it a rather pleasant thing to experience. I find it interesting, and I find some humour. I find it tragicomic. So I'm interested in the tragedy, I'm interested in the comedy of this whole thing that's going on. And when illness and death comes into the picture, the tragicomic aspect of our existence becomes harder to disregard. So in dealing with doctors who are different people obviously, but most of them that I've met tend to be pretty undeveloped as human beings. And so dealing with them is also an interesting thing for me. So I just find it interesting, and actually more interesting than going to the movies or watching a television show. So it's actually some kind of entertainment.